the Easy as Accounting presentation, third one in the series for the expense section. I've pretty much gone over everything in here already. I just want to point out a couple more little points. I haven't pointed out this for you. This particular thing is like a little search. You can actually search for something throughout the screen. Now how it works by columns. So let's say I click on this column here. These figures are going to look funny because everything's worked out on a percentage because of the sales tax. But let's say I'm going to click on that column here. See if I did that then. I was in that column, I clicked that, and it brought me back to a normal figure. I'm on this screen. I'm looking for something in this particular column. I'm looking for an entry. Let's pick something. Let's say I'm looking for an entry of $14.55. You're not going to know that anyway, because most of the time you're only going to know the total figure. But I'm just going to do this to show you. I rarely ever use this because it's really not necessary. I click this icon here. I'm going to look for a figure of 14. I put 14 in, and I've told it to find the first amount with that figure in it. I click find first, and it found nothing. Match the case. Yeah, whatever. Hang on a minute. Get rid of that. Woohoo, don't you love this? Find it. Find next. Yeah, you see, you know what it's done? It's searching for a whole field. Sorry guys, see this is an example of this thing here. I don't normally use it, but here's an example of it. I've typed in 14 and it's finding the exact amount in that field. It calls everything a field. That's a field. That's a column is a field. This column's a field. This column's a field. So it's looking for that exact figure, but that isn't the figure. It's $14 something, isn't it? So what I want to tell it, I want to tell it any part of the field. So now, if I click it, there we go. Now it's found it. See that? I wasn't using it right. So, and I've turned off the case match. Now, if I just jump back up the screen here, if I close this for a second, we're going to jump back up the screen here, and we're going to try that again. I'm going to do this here. It's remember that last thing I did. If I click on the case, what happens now? Any part? Well, it's found it anyway. Okay, so I did find a case match, turn off. But there's an example of what that is. Some people go around the twist because they don't understand what's going on with this thing. And it searched all up or down. Now, I just wanted to see something. I want to try something here. If I don't click on that, if I'm clicking up here, and I do a search, I don't normally use it. Oh, it did it anyway. You know, I've just learned something. I always thought it worked off a column. I'm going to enter the word phone. What happens? Phone. Okay, so in this case, it's working off a column. Any part of the field, all, phone. Yeah, it is. It's working off the column you were last at. So if I click here now, it can't find it. It does work off a column. Okay, so you've got to be in the column. So if I click here, and now I tell it I want to search for that, it finds the first entry. It's going to make me a liar again. Phone. See, this case match came up because I typed that in lowercase. It's finding the first word, the first letter starts with a capital P. Do you see how specific this is? Any case is any case. Find next, find next, find next, find next. Search current, only current field. You know, I'm learning this as I go along, guys, with you because I don't use this at all. But I wanted to find something. And this is a good example for you to learn. I don't know what happened a minute ago, but see how it's finding it now? See how I wasn't even in the column, but it found it. I was over here, and I said find it. I ticked off that. That was ticked off. I think before is because I had the case match on, and that's why it was glonking, wasn't it? And once I ticked that off, now it's finding it on the screen because there's no case match. So have a play with this. It's on all of these screens. It was chucked in there because the guys who use this the most, I am not one of the people who produce the software. There's some smarter guys there that do that. I am working behind the scenes with them, and I use this in my business, but I don't use all the features of this program. And as you can see, I only use in my businesses, I've got a few, what I want to use. And most of the time, I use the most basic part of the software because I want to keep it so simple. If I didn't have to account for sales tax, I didn't have to account for income tax, there's no way in the world I'd even have a bookkeeping program because I hate them. This is the simplest one that was around, which is why I got involved with these guys early on, because I got involved when they were developing it in the early days because it's so simple. And I put a lot of input into it. Some of the things you see here, actually from me, some of these things like this, I didn't do that. I didn't want that, but they put it there because it is useful. And as you can see, once you do play with it, it is quite useful. And I didn't actually know some of the things it did until we both learned it together. That's that there. Only other thing I want to point out before I run out of time, which I've just used up all the time again, is this columns icon. You can actually add 2 extra columns, with a few extra columns to this screen. I don't use it for myself, but I know it is useful for those who use it. Some of the partners in the business use it. If I click this here, you can add 3 extra columns to your screen. This is a default heading. You can change the headings of these columns. If I click turn columns on, yes, because a minute ago it was no. Columns on, no. Columns on, yes. And it tells you quickly, if you look at that, it says up on the top here, it says if you do not want to print these extra columns when you print, turn this off. So you can switch this off and not print your reports with those extra columns showing. And you can put it back on to have them there. Because sometimes this might just be an internal thing that you're doing for yourself. It doesn't need for tax purposes. It's just something you do. Whatever. There's so much flexibility with this software. You can choose what you want, where you want, how you want it. So it's just there. It's just telling you what happens if you turn it back off. Now, if I close this, the extra columns are on. If I click this here now, I can go over to these extra columns. You see each line now has an extra column. If I click enter, it does this when you're entering entry. So it does flick backwards and forwards. It is a little bit, how's your mother? But everyone that uses it says, it's just simple, it's easy, they like it that way, and it's beautiful. I don't use it because I've got no need for it. But it is really, really clever. You can actually record a receipt number if you want to record the receipt numbers, an audit date if you've audited your own yourself. See, as I said, you can change that. You can change the heading, and it might be something completely different. This might not be a receipt number. You might call it something else. Okay, there's flexibility. I do like this, though. I have seen a few people use this, and depending on their business, it either works for their business or it doesn't. And I like this feature because it means that, let's say, over here, we categorize this, but there is no way, apart from the additional comments, to write who the receipt was from. However, you don't have to use the additional columns for that. You can come over here, additional comments, sorry, and add it here. So say I add that this is from Fred, right? You can add it here. Now, what happens though is, I can click this add button. If I click this, it's just got a sample entry. So if I click sample now, it's put that sample here. If I click this add button, it knows to add Fred to the list. I've added Fred to the list. Now Fred comes up. See this? So now, if I'm over here, and I suddenly, this particular entry here, I'm just doing an example, okay? So it's not going to be a true entry. Suddenly, I've purchased goods. No, let's make it an entry. Let's say I've purchased protective clothing from Fred down the road, whoever it was. Maybe my business buys clothing once a month. So I can select the supplier now, and the supplier is Fred. Okay? Fred's been selected, and if I go to the next column. See how simple that is? Nice and simple and easy. I don't need to show you anything else, so you can add that there. If I click the open list here, it will bring up this list here. It will bring up all the items on that list, and you can actually enter more in here. You can enter directly. So say you have a big list of suppliers you'd like to shove on that list right now, you can enter them in here. I'm just going to enter something there. I'm going to click finish. It says you've got maximum 30 characters. It's added him there. If I close that screen, we'll jump back to where we are, and he's not there, is he? Yeah, good on you. I think I've got to refresh the screen. I'm going to exit and come back in. He is there. Okay, he does there. Sometimes the screen's got to be refreshed, whatever. And he is there. So, ironically, if it's a new person and is not on the list, you're going to type it in here, and then you're just going to click add, aren't you? You don't really have to go back to that list, because in the next time, he's there. He's automatically there. That was the only other thing I wanted to show you. And you've got a sort icon here, so you can sort the order here. See there, it sorted that order. Okay, I don't think I need to show you anything else. I'm out of time again.